accident management support, including motor replacement, repairs and personal injury compensation claims, just search G4 Claims today.
Hi and welcome to this week's episode of the DW podcast. I am joined with Dan from Mundial, so thanks very much for coming on, mate.
I know, thanks for having us, man.
How are you getting on?
Yeah, okay. Slowly getting back to normal, I think.
Good.
We're moving office at the moment, so been driving a van around London today, which is more stressful.
The guys.
Yeah, more stressful than the day job. So, yeah, okay, all good. We're kind of, as I said, almost back to normal. We've got a digital magazine as it is now to put together for August. Am I echoing there?
No, you're totally fine.
Okay,
totally fine.
sorry,
No worries.
That's the big helicopter. And then we've got a few new projects kind of coming back to life with various brands. So strangely,
we'll touch on it for those that haven't heard the Mundial, what it is and where it came from. But a bit about yourself first of all, in case people haven't worked out already. You're a Scouser and you're a Liverpool fan, so you'll be a very happy man at the moment.
Yeah, pretty happy. Quite a strange way to do it, but I'm 31, so I don't know any different. You know what I mean? It's sort of a relief more than anything that we've got that Premier League that was kind of held over us for a long time by various other fan bases. We've got that on the board, and it's done. And we can kind of look towards next year now. I suppose there's 3 games left. I think there's one happening as we're chatting right now, and there's been not a moment in 30 years that I've been less interested in how Liverpool get on in a game than for these next 2 weeks.
I was going to apologise for taking you away for that, but I suppose it doesn't matter anymore, does it?
No, that's all good, man. I'll always look. I'll probably kind of try and catch up on anything that happens later from a personal
standpoint. Any of the celebrations, or are you on hold at the moment? Have you managed to get back up?
Really strangely, I was I'm based in London, but I was up there the day before it happened. So I was there. I was up there with work, like about 200 yards from Anfield, when we were playing Crystal Palace, which was really surreal to kind of be there and not have it happen. And me and a colleague were kind of, should we stay? You know, Chelsea City tomorrow, we could win the league, and we decided to come back to London. And
you're joking.
Yeah, I mean, who's to say what I would have done, but whether I would have been outside Anfield with all those people, but probably.
Right, so let's move on then. I mean, brilliant year for you personally, but Mundial, I mean, for those that don't know, how would you describe it? I would say it's a magazine, a creative agency, but it's got so many strands to it now. It's like, in your words, what is Mundial?
We probably just see ourselves as a football brand more than it, like not as in clothing brand, but like a brand that kind of is qualified to talk about football, and that did start as a magazine, became a creative agency, and we kind of talk through brands and help brands tell their story to football fans. And then there's the kind of a podcast series, social media. Our social media channels are what people probably know us most for, and then a digital magazine launching in August. So yeah, it's just we see it all under the one banner of Mundial, but there's a lot of things going on under that name, and it's kind of hard to keep track sometimes, and especially when something happens like the last 4 or 5 months, you kind of have to take stock on what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve with each of those strands of the business. And it is what it is. I don't think there's many things like this. There are other magazines that act as creative agencies and create podcasts and stuff, but in football we feel like we're quite a unique thing.
Certainly. I think the success has showed that. How did you come up with the idea then, Dan? Or what was, because it's obviously a collective of, because I suppose that put the content together at the start, but what was the thought process behind, let's get this moving and up and running?
So we, me and Seb, who's the co-founder, we had been working well, not working. We helped run a fanzine in our spare time called Stand, and that was around the time that there was kind of like an against modern football movement, and there still is, obviously, to some degree, but particularly in England, it was around the 20 is plenty kind of campaign, and trying to kind of FC United had kind of just appeared on the scene. AFC Wimbledon were around. Spirit of Shankly were doing stuff at Liverpool, the Blue Union at Everton, and there was all these fan groups who kind of wanted to represent it a little bit better. So the idea of that fanzine was to these people don't necessarily get on and talk to each other and stuff, so we provided a platform where content from AFC Wimbledon could sit alongside a Liverpool fan talking about how things affect them in modern football. What that kind of became over time was it was as football fans are, that it became quite cynical and quite negative fast, and we did achieve some kind of good stuff with it. I think we helped support Spirit of Shankly and things like that to get away ticket prices down, and made some small gains. But what me and Seb found in particular was that we were kind of just putting out negative stuff around football, and that wasn't for us. And there was a big collective around that who kind of took on Stand and made it something else. But we wanted to definitely highlight things that are wrong with the game, but talk about the positivity around it and kind of see how we could affect people's experiences within football from a positive standpoint, rather than just going, here's what's wrong with the game, here's what's wrong with the game, kind of 4 or 5 times a year, whatever it was. And there was a World Cup coming up, and we thought it was a good opportunity to do something a little bit more premium, to kind of pull on that same network of people as you sort of said there, and to bring in writers that we like, bring in illustrators that we like, and do a one-off special edition for the World Cup. We did that. We printed 2014 of them. It's kind of, like I said, a limited edition thing, and each of them were numbered with the name of a player who'd made the most, like, the top 2014 appearance holders in World Cup history. So I think at the time, Gerd Muller was number 1, and that kind of went down from there as people who'd appeared in World Cups. So you could get a Mark Viduka, for example, or you could get a Johan for whatever. We did that. We put it on pre-sale, and I think it sold out in like a week. So we're like, oh, we're kind of onto something here. But we both had existing jobs and didn't really know how to monetize something like this. So decided it'd be one-off. We had a good party for the World Cup. And then a few months later, someone from a sportswear brand was like, oh, when's your next issue out? And we were like, there isn't a next issue, it was a one-off. And they were like, oh, well, we've got access to a player that we wanted to put in your magazine. And it was Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain when he was at Arsenal. And we were like, wow, okay, so we better do another one. And that kind of kept happening for a few months. And then before we knew it, we were at 4 or 5, and we needed to bring some other people on board. So we brought a couple of people we'd worked with elsewhere, some amazing writers, some amazing editors like Sam and Owen, who are still with us to this day. And it kind of just snowballed from there, to be honest. And here we are 6 years later. A lot of different things happened along the way. We sort of became more professional in some ways. In some ways, we're still exactly the same as kind of that first day.
It's interesting you mentioned Stand there. I remember, I can't remember what issue it was, but back in the day I wrote an article for Stand about fan ownership at Motherwell. And I really enjoyed the magazine at first, the fanzine, sorry. Thought it was brilliant, but I know what you mean about it going down the route of a wee bit more negativity, and Mundial's the polar opposite to that. You know, it's not necessarily all about football and results. It's about what makes football sexy, or what makes football exciting, and what people buy into. So I think you'll know better than me, but you know, the brand is about clothing, it's about certain players, it's about nostalgia, you know, and I think that's what really sets you apart. It's not as if you're writing in each issue or posting on the website things that you'll see in any other football platforms, is it?
Oh, well, that's good. We hope that's the case, and it's nice you to say that. And I don't want to dwell on Stan, because like there's someone still, you know, it's still there and it still serves a purpose, and it's still great, and there's still some great writers who contribute to it. But I think what was missing from it was kind of more people like yourselves who who'd gone and done something about it, you know, and gone and kind of taken ownership back at their club, or done something along those lines, and wanted to talk about that, how that's a great thing. And also I think people's understanding of modern football and what's wrong with it differs. Some people think it's owners and ticket prices, and some people think people shouldn't be allowed to wear scarves. You know what I mean? There's kind of more. There's a range of cynicism there, which you can't possibly boil down into one publication, I don't think. But yeah, so Mundial was about like, well, what are the things that we still love? And I think when we started, we were a little bit naive, and that was kind of, you know, at the time there wasn't as much football media out there, and there wasn't. Twitter wasn't quite as active, so it was very much, yeah, who are the cool players, what are the cool boots, what are the cool kits, with a little bit of travel and a little bit of kind of discovery of football thrown in. I think over time we've kind of come back towards football, if that makes sense, and who are the great players, who are the stories that deserve to be told. But there's definitely still an element from those first few issues, which is like, what is it that you love about football, and how can we tell you about that, whether it is something minute, whether it is the minutiae and it's a certain type of player who rolls his socks down and plays in a certain style, or is it something more developed? Is it things that you can, you know, why you should be paying attention to this league in Korea, why you should be doing. So it's kind of the big broad stuff like that, like big global stuff. Sure. Which I don't think gets the coverage it deserves, and then there is still an element of very Mundial stuff, the Reeds Mundial Mag 1 stuff that we kind of built our name on.
Yeah, so for those that don't know the Reeds Mundial 1's tagline, I mean, I think would it be unfair or fair to say, you know, there's almost a kind of hipster element to it as well.
Yeah, I mean,
how would you explain that to people that have never heard this?
So Reeds Mundial once is just something that we completely stole from Four Pins. I don't know, Four Pins kind of an offshoot of Complex magazine in the US, and we knew some of the guys who wrote for it, and it was a very, very niche menswear blog, full of in-jokes, kind of for, I imagine, what was a very small audience compared to Complex. And we saw that and went, that's kind of a bit of us, you know what I mean? Like kind of full of in-jokes and doing things that hinder your success more than help you become a global brand. That's kind of what we're doing. So we just nicked it. Like their version of it was someone who'd be kind of a real hype beast character, or someone who wore outlandish clothes or something that was like Reed's Four Pins once. Ours was definitely, like the stereotypical, which at the time was massive all over the internet, and the football hipster thing was like, you either embraced it, kind of, some people were like, I am a football hipster, and then at the other side of the coin it was used as a stick to beat some people with, because they had the cheek to quite like Osasuna, you know. We just were like, look, people are going to say this about us anyway. People are either going to take the piss out of us or try and be part of whatever this movement, if you can call it that, is. So we just wanted to be like, look, we get it. It is a little bit funny. It is a little bit weird. There is definitely a stereotype of our readers and the people who write for us. So we kind of wanted to take that back and make fun of ourselves a bit, which I don't think there's enough of in football. I think
totally agree.
I think we're all guilty of thinking it's the most important thing in the world at all times. So yeah, we just wanted to take the piss out of mainly us.
It's brilliant, and you know the amount of tweets that you see still continuing to this day, even though it's came from the early days of Mundial. It's really clicked on, and in my opinion, it's became synonymous with you guys.
Yeah,
I didn't actually
that's good. Like memes travel, man. So like people, like it's one of the first things that people usually say to us, you know, and they're always quite surprised that when they meet us, that we're not wearing like an Alaves third strip from 1992. It is, an element of it is.
It's most of your strip that you can be wearing. Why do you get a white t-shirt on the night, Dan? That's not what I expect.
I'm not really like sacrilege, but I'm not really. I think I own one football shirt, you know. I love them, and we've got loads in the office, and some of the team wear them and some of them don't. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm in my 30s now. I need to knock the football shirt thing on the head.
So you started back in 2014, but I mean, now it's 6 years later. When did it get to that stage? You know, obviously, after that first issue, after following the World Cup, you got interest there saying, you know, we want to do this article with Oxlade-Chamberlain, we want to feature him. When did it get to that stage where you thought, oh shit, I really need to quit my job here and take this full time? Because living in London, you know, it's obviously not a cheap place to live, and you probably a good bonus. You know, it's like it must have been a risk almost, but you've grabbed it with both hands, and it seems to have paid off.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I just lost the job, so it was kind of
maybe it was fate almost.
Yeah, maybe. They didn't think that, but yeah, I mean, it was getting that way. It was getting that way, and we were kind of getting a little bit of work from some brands, and there was some, you know, people who did us some massive favors early on in the industry. Brands like Lecoq Sportif, who were doing Saint Etienne and Fiorentina's kits at the time, kind of took a bit of a punt on us and gave us some paid work when no one else really would.
Right.
And it wasn't enough to really sustain. I think when me and Owen decided to do it full time, we had enough in the bank to pay us for like a month, I think, or 2 months. Maybe it was 2 months. But I suppose once you decide you do it, it's kind of like taking that leap, and fortunately, or fate, or whatever it was, as soon as we did that, it kind of kicked things into motion. It was like a bit chicken or egg, you know, until you decide to just go, this is my thing, I'm going to do it full time and not just in the evenings. It very rarely happens, and there's never a perfect time to make that jump. That's what we found anyway. Was that it had to be a bit scary, and you know what I mean. A lot of the time, it is still a little bit scary 4 or 5 years later, but yeah, there was no like eureka moment where it was like, okay, cool, I can get a mortgage now because Mundial's full time. It was like, A, I haven't got a job. B, I'm moving back to the UK from Southeast Asia. C, and it was sort of third on the list. It was like, maybe now's the time to go full time on this and to give it a good go. And you know, through a lot of hard work, but through a lot of luck and a lot of good faith from other people as well, we kind of got there in the end.
Brilliant. I mean, I've had a few people on the podcast that have got their own, you know, clothing lines or their own businesses, and I just love that story of people, you know, taking that leap of faith and doing something that they essentially love. You know, your passion is football, and you're working in football. It must be a joy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's crazy. We have to remind ourselves that, because we are football. Like I said earlier on, football fans are cynical, and we are generally as people, and we're sort of more and more conditioned to be a little bit like that, you know, through various things, social media and media and stuff like that. We're kind of conditioned to be like, oh, this, you know, it's cool to think your job's crap, and like, oh, I hate this, it's rude. But like, we do, you know, I think we said on our Instagram the other day that we're super privileged to do this job. You know what I mean? We get to interview people who are genuinely our heroes, from growing up, or who are heroes now, like people who are playing football now. We're trying to put together the next issue, and I think if you take the list of possible features we have for this next issue to me 5 years ago, I'd have thought you were taking the piss, because you know, we struggle. We don't get the access that other people get, but we work hard, and we get some really good stories, and we get to do some amazing things. So it's brilliant. I think, as with any independent business, particularly in the current climate, it's hard as well. Like, you know, it's stressful, and we're all friends, but our friendships have been tested through trying to pay the bills at the end of the month, trying to pay other people's wages, trying to be a little bit more professional. That's where the stress comes in. Because when it was just a hobby, it was like, you know what, if we sell six, it's cool. Now we kind of have to keep the lights on, so that's where the stress comes in. But then that's like 30% of the job. The other 70% is, like you said, it's a joy.
You mentioned, that you've interviewed some of your heroes, or you've met some of your heroes. Has there been any standouts for you that jump out when you say that? Is there anyone specific that you thought, oh my God, I'm doing this for a job and I'm in a room with X, Y, or Z? Or...
Well, I really have to be careful saying this, especially when I'm speaking to anyone who supports a team in Scotland at the moment, because he's not.
No, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, 3 years ago, you could say it and almost anyone in the world would go, yeah, great, of course, that must have been amazing. But what he's doing, some of the things he's saying and doing up in Scotland have kind of soured that a bit. But for me, like, growing up, Steven Gerrard was my footballing hero, and we were like so fortunate. It was one of those real kind of sliding doors moments. He was doing a Legends tournament, I think, in London, and we just through a contact we got some time with him. I think I got half an hour with him, and it helped. It was kind of in a press thing, and he'd been doing some pretty difficult interviews at the time. There was kind of a lot of talk around England, and he was kind of getting grilled because he'd spoken to the FA about what was going wrong at England, and it was, oh, you're coaching at the academy, you want to be Liverpool manager one day. So I don't think he's the easiest or like the most upbeat person at the best of times, Stephen, but he was in a bad mood when we got to him. But fortunately, we just wanted to talk to him about his Liverpool debut for a feature in the mag, and I was at that game, and I just kind of said that to kind of break the ice, and you immediately kind of saw him go, right, I'm not going to end up on the front page of a newspaper being misquoted here, and he kind of sat down, and it was amazing. It was like in a conference room in central London, and really unsalubrious, and it was literally maybe 23 minutes, but that's kind of one that I'll always remember, is like, okay, we're onto something here, we're doing something good. You get to meet someone who you really respected as a footballer. The moments as a magazine, as a collective, that's my personal one, but as a where we thought we were onto something was Pirlo. We flew out to New York to interview Pirlo when he was at NYCFC.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it was cool, man. And we'd featured his autobiography in the first issue, or the issue 0. And I mean, I'm sure you know, and I'm sure people listening to this, if they know us, know, but he was kind of the Mundial straw man kind of figure. He was what people, if people thought of Mundial, especially at the time, they thought of Andrea Pirlo, because
he just oozes class, doesn't he?
He owns a vineyard and wears his socks low, you know what I mean? And that's kind of the reputation we had, certainly at the time. And I think that just came through an Instagram DM. I think NYCFC messaged us and said, we like what you guys do. Would you like to do anything? And because we're cheeky, essentially, we just went, yeah, we want to interview Pirlo, thinking they'd go, fuck off. And they didn't. But like typical of us, what happened was they were on the cusp of the playoffs. And if they lost against Columbus Crew at Yankee Stadium, the night we were getting there, they'd have to fly straight to Washington. And Patrick Vieira, who was manager, wouldn't let any of the players do any press because he had to get his team into the playoffs over to Washington. So we flew there not knowing if the interview was going to happen. And we went to New York. I went out on the first night and just got like smashed with some friends in New York. And then the next day I had to go to Yankee Stadium. And I think New York City FC went 1-0 down. And I was just like, oh, fucked it. I spent all our, like, we had no money at the time. We had like enough for a flight. And I was staying with a mate, I think. And like the interview wasn't going to happen. and then fortunately Frank Lampard came on and changed the game. So I'll always love Frank Lampard for getting us our Pirlo interview, essentially. But yeah, we got him on the cover, and that was when we were like, if we can get Andrea Pirlo, even towards the end of his career, the sky's the limit here for us. We shouldn't try and belittle ourselves anymore.
Yeah. What was he like as a person? Was he brand new?
So he's like cooler in the traditional sense of the word, as in like ice cool. He's cooler than he seems on telly. Like he's just so laid back. We met him in a hotel near his apartment in New York, and he just turned up on his own. And we'd taken a New York City FC tracksuit because we were like, what if he turns up in something that we don't want on the cover of the magazine? And he turned up in like the best rig out I've ever seen. And we were like, put the tracksuit back in the bag. It's fine. We don't need the tracksuit. So he was wicked. It was through. We had a translator there, kind of an English guy called James Campbell Taylor, who's been super supportive of the mag for a long time. Who's also a huge Pirlo fan. A friend of mine who lives in New York, who's been a friend for a long time and worked on a lot of stuff with us, got to shoot it. So that was when we were like this is our, this is ours. And Pirlo was great. He gave us hours, on a really cold New York night. And he also didn't get upset when my friend mentioned Istanbul to him, which I thought was
You didn't, did you?
really nice of him. Yeah.
I don't say that. If there's one thing not to mention, that's it.
He mentioned it, so I told my mate, I was like, he starts his book talking about it. Don't mention Istanbul. It's the worst night of his entire life. And I think we were with him for 35 seconds before John brought it up. So,
you're joking.
But he was cool. He was great, and yeah, like, what an honour.
And you hit the nail on the head there. Once you've got him in the front of the magazine, the sky's the limit, and it's been up and up and up.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it seems like that from the outside.
Outside looking in, Dan, it's been up and up and up. I'm sure, behind the scenes, you guys are grafting every day. But it's been great to see. It's just,
cool. Yeah, like, and we've grown in scale, and we've got quite a big loyal readership who we just would like that. They pay for the magazine to be printed essentially and to be sent out to them, and they love it, and they tell us what they like about it, and they're super honest about what they don't like. I think that came from doing a pre-order on the very first one. It's like people were just putting £7 down in complete faith that it'd be good, and a lot of those are still there to this day. So we're really close to our subscribers, and we never lost sight of that. We are on newsstands. We were, and we still want a bigger, more global audience, but we try and reward those people who've been there from the start as much as possible. And I think all the best brands, like, it's not nice to big up brands, but like, there are good brands and there are bad brands. All the best brands reward people who love their brands, and that's what we want to do.
You mentioned, it was print media, and you are in the modern day, I think what kind of stood you apart as well as having the print aspect, but going forward, you're going fully digital. What was your thought process behind that? Was it a cost-cutting exercise, or are you thinking, the world's changing, we can adapt? Or?
So we'd already been producing an app essentially so that we could replicate what we do in print on digital. Sorry, phone's going. We'd already been producing an app to replicate what we're doing in print digitally, but then the world changed. Like, then things just got out of hand. We should have had a print magazine out by now. So as an independent business, essentially, we just had to keep people on board, essentially, to make sure that we can honour our employees, all the people who we are working with currently, people who have existing contracts with us, and that includes subscribers, to honour what we have with them, and to not for us to just go pop overnight, or to go pop even sadder over a period of a few months. We had to make a sacrifice, and we love print. Like, we're all mad for print. We wanted to make Mundial print because we'd all worked in digital previously, and we'd seen where that had gone with kind of clickbait journalism and stuff. But to be realistic, with things being so uncertain, it's like, at the time that we made the call, we didn't know when football had started again, for example. The Euros had just been cancelled, etc., etc. So in the short term, we just had to say, we're going to pause print, and we're going to give anyone who wants their money back for print, they can have their money back, and we're going to continue doing this digital thing for as long as possible to keep putting content out, and then we'll see where we are when the world returns to normal, even if that is the new normal, or even if that is around a major tournament. So I don't think it's an exclusive, and I think everyone knows. But we're like, Monday I'll be back in print in one form or another. It may not be subscription based, but like we're it's a big, expensive, stupid hobby print, and we love it too much. So like we'll be back there.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I think people do have a real affinity to it, don't they? I watched a feature the other day on programme collectors. It was done, I think, for the BBC. And I just thought, I'm similar to that. I love old programmes, magazines, and I mean, as much as most people will consume their media online and they'll read it online, I love picking up a book, or I love picking up a magazine, or I love picking up a programme. So I suppose there is that. Even if it's a minority, it's still that there's a wee bit of a market there for it, isn't there?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think people like tangible products, whether that, you've seen that with the resurgence of records, but like you can get any record you want on your phone now, but people like that experience of buying something, taking it home, unwrapping it, putting it on the turntable. And it's the same with a magazine. Like I've got like a million next to me, like all sorts of different like shit that I've not read yet, because I like owning a magazine and I like being able to flick through it. And yeah, like there's definitely something about it, and I think people were saying a few years ago there's like a resurgence in print. I don't think it's that anymore. I think print's just back. It's just back in a different way. People don't buy a newspaper every day of the week, but they buy something once a month and really care for it and put it on a shelf next to all their existing ones and stuff. So there's definitely an appetite for it, but by its nature, it's quite a niche thing. So we have to balance that. You know what I mean? In the glory days of men's magazines, you could take that risk and you could offset it and be like, oh yeah, we only sold 30% on newsstand, but we're the coolest magazine in the world and we've got Jarvis Cocker on the front. I think now it needs to be a little bit more of a calculated risk, and you need to think about where your niche is in the market. And we've got that, and we'll definitely return to that. But for now, if it's a choice of paying our staff and making sure everyone's okay for Christmas, or putting out a print magazine, there's when no one's going to the train stations, for example. There's just no question of what choice we had to make there.
Good. What I wanted to ask you about is the Sporting Club de Mundial, because it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys have almost created your own football team down in London as well.
Yeah, so what we did was we saw what's the only thing in the world that makes less money than a print magazine, and it's a football team. No, that's not true. The reason we did it actually was because we kind of banged the drum about grassroots for a long time, and there's loads of amazing initiatives, particularly in London. I don't know what it's like where you are and where I'm from. It's maybe it's kind of taken off a little bit, but grassroots, like Hackney Marshes is the home of grassroots football. Like there's no two ways about that. And I met a guy who's a very good friend of mine now called Alan Bond, and he was managing the Gun, which is one of our favourite pubs in London. And they were like they had the coolest pub team in the world, basically. And they won the BT Sport Pub Cup, like had the best brand, had the most amazing kit. And we tried to work with them for a long time. And we did some cool stuff, but we were like, we've got the platform here to do something off our own back, and we talk about grassroots. We have an audience that loves grassroots football. So what's the next logical step? And for us, that was initially, to be perfectly honest, it was about doing a Mundial football team and kind of marketing it in that sense. And we were maybe a little bit naive and a little bit egotistical in the first sense. We're like, it's a cool Mundial football team, whatever. But like the magic, what we found very, very quickly, because it's a steep learning curve in grassroots, is like the magic of grassroots is that it's grassroots, and if you go there trying to be the cool team, you get found out very quickly. So what it developed into,
build your way up.
Yeah. What we found out, really quickly, and what we found out through the people who were kind of involved in it and the players, Liverpool are winning, is 1-0. Anyway, is that the magic of grassroots is grassroots, as I said, and what it developed into was a football club rather than a cool team, essentially. And we've got, last season we had a men's team who played on Sunday, 2 midweek women's teams, a community training session which people could just come down to and play at, which is kind of like the full spectrum of football in London. And then the plan for next season is to kind of have a Saturday, Sunday, and to develop that even further. So, as with the magazine, we're probably just going to learn by making mistakes from that,
Sure.
and try and tell the good grassroots story, and to tell it honestly across that spectrum. Whether you're a really good, amazing Sunday league player, or if you're someone who just likes going and having a kick about your mates on a Wednesday evening, I think that's something that's underappreciated, and not to keep going back to it, but especially in the current climate, I don't want to, there's not many things, apart from perhaps going to watch Liverpool or going to the pub with my mates, that I want them to just go and have a kick about and to play football semi-competitively. So it's going to be difficult because of all the constraints that we're under, and because brands are a little bit suspicious of grassroots and they kind of want to dip the toe, but they don't. But it's a huge passion project of mine, and everyone who's involved in Mundial to really push that once football comes back, and to see where we can take a proper grassroots football club with the backing of us, rather than just a cool football team. I think there's lots of cool football teams, and we thought we wanted to be that, but when you look at it, you just look like a bit of a wanker if you do that.
I think that's been Mundial from the start and still to this day. Is as much as you're interviewing people like Pirlo, Oxlade-Chamberlain, you mentioned, world class players across the board. You've also done excellent features, both in terms of video content and in print, of grassroots football clubs, or non-league football clubs, or teams that are community owned. And I think that's, you're not just showcasing the world talent, you're showcasing what's good at a local level as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm a Liverpool fan. I'm very fortunate to be a Liverpool fan. But like, who's to say that my team winning the league after 30 years is any more important than to me than a non-league team winning their league is to one of their fans? I think it is one and the same. I do. I think if you're a Juventus fan, or if you're a Schem United fan, which is my hometown club actually,
Sure.
I don't think you care about that team as much as anyone else, right? And also that, there's some brilliant stories there. You see a lot. There's a lot of truth in the fact that the top level of the game has been sanitized a little bit, and it's hard to get the truth of football up there because cameras are trained on it 24/7, and you can turn on Sky Sports News and learn everything you need to know about Liverpool, Everton, Manchester United, Celtic, Barcelona, Real Madrid. It doesn't matter. You can find all that out, on your phone. But yeah, if you want to know what's going on in Gateshead or Canvey Island, there's not a lot of information out there. So we're really proud that we do that, and also it's not. I don't think it's a worthy thing. The good stories, they deserve to be told. It's not like we're going to tell the story of plucky little Marine or Prescott Cables. That's a higher quality of football than I'll ever play. You know what I mean? Those players are well better than me. So let's tell that story.
What's the future for Mundial then? And here's a question for you, Dan, that I want you to sell to the listeners or to the people watching this. If you've not read Mundial, if you've not heard it, why should they check it out? And what have he got coming up in the future?
Okay, good question. So a few years ago, we were fortunate enough to be given some office space by Copper 90, and a colleague, my old boss actually. This is not a colleague. My old boss gave us some office space. James Kirkham, his name was, and he was one of the bosses at Copper 90, and he's not there. He's at Defective Record now. But he said, Mundial mag, every time I pick it up, it reminds me why I love football. And we heard that and went, right, we're going to nick that. That's brilliant. That's such a nice thing to say, but also it kind of crystallizes what we're about. And I think the way I say it is, Johan Cruyff definitely reminds me why I love football, but only in the same way that Marcus Rashford does. I don't think it's all about looking back. I think we kind of got pigeonholed about being a bit of a retro magazine. And what we've tried to do consciously over the past 2 years is be like, Marcus Rashford is as important to the story of football as Diego Maradona is, as, Mo Salah is as amazing to Liverpool fans now as Robbie Fowler was, and we need to kind of keep that story moving and keep it going. So we want to remind people why they love football, and that's our mission, and that's what we try and do with everything we do, whether it's funny, whether it's sarcastic, whether it's really serious, sentimental story. That's what we want to try and do, and that's what Mundial does. In terms of the future, we launch our first digital magazine terrifyingly soon. Very early August.
This podcast is out. It'll be out and available at the moment. It's the 4th of August it comes out, isn't it?
Is that what we said? Yeah, okay. something like that. Yeah, it's either out now or it's out really soon. But
it'll be out at some point.
Yeah, no, like in that week we're slated for release. I'll get in quite a lot of trouble for not knowing the date. But so we've got that coming out. We've got I can tell you this because of the date. We've got a new podcast series launching with Spotify. So it's the second series of Giants. It's football stories that matter told by the people who were there. If you're looking for another tagline, that's incredible. There's a folk song about an English centre forward, which is part of one of the things. It's unbelievable.
Just on that subject, the first series of Giant, for those that haven't listened to it, go out and check it out. It's been absolutely brilliant. Some of the stories in there were fantastic, starting off with the old Ronaldo, or the real Ronaldo, as they say. Yeah.
I mean, I had almost nothing to do with Giants, so it's one of my favourite things to talk about because it's unbelievable. We'd kind of been asked to do a podcast for a long time by various companies, but also various kind of people who put podcasts together, and we'd kind of held off because there's so many brilliant podcasts which is just people talking about football. The Football Ramble's incredible, The Guardian, Football Weekly, Richardson, all those guys do it better than anyone. So we were like, how do we do the Mundial thing in podcast? And that was with kind of short form document, or not that short, but like audio documentaries essentially. So as you said, let's take the Ronaldo one for example. We wanted to tell the story of his time at PSV. So the guys who produced the podcast went and spoke to the scout who found him in Brazil, his coaches, the guy who hung out at the pizza parlour that he frequented in Eindhoven, Luke Nilish, Bolo Zenden, all these, Luke Nilish, who is Ronaldo's favourite ever strike partner, just kind of talking openly about how magic it was to play alongside him. And it's one of the things we're most proud of. I think if you can't get a hold of one of the magazines, it's probably the most Mundial thing we've done is that series. So there's a second series of that coming, which will be slightly different, kind of moving on a little bit, but equally as brilliant. And like I said, I've got nothing to do with it, so I do mean that when I say brilliant. The football, when we hear from local FAs, which may have happened by the time this goes out, when we can play football again, you'll be hearing from Sporting Club de Mundial and the various new teams that are going to be formed within that club, and lots and lots more teams.
Partnership you've got with Del Monte.
Oh yeah, of course. And we did the Fruitball Cup with Del Monte, so it's all go. Yeah, there'll be more brand partnerships, and we always try and kind of do something a little bit different. And like I said before, you know, people think football is life and death, and to some people it is, but like it's also a lot of fun, and people should be able to have fun with it. So there'll be more stuff like that, and just loads more tweets probably. Just loads more tweets that make people either upset or happy.
100%. Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure. For those that haven't checked out Mundial, you'll get them on Twitter, Instagram, all the usual places. Go listen to the Giant podcast episodes that are previously out ahead of the new series starting. Thanks to everyone that's listened to this podcast. Liked and subscribed. Much appreciated. And Dan, top man, thank you.
Thanks very much. Cheers.